We have several stories affecting Tesla to share with you today. First, Tesla's full self-driving is now rolling out to customer cars in China, and with that, we have two videos to watch. Tesla China is promoting FSD in the app and website. While they're not calling it FSD and instead Autopilot, the version is actually 13.2.6 for hardware for vehicles. We'll explore what this might mean. Second, there are unconfirmed reports that Giga Shanghai is now at 2,000 new Tesla Model Ys per day. This would suggest the ramp is moving smoothly. Third, a few days ago, the Financial Times reported that a high-level Japanese group, including the former Prime Minister and former Tesla board member, were asking Tesla to invest in Nissan. Former Tesla board member Hiro Mizuno quickly denied this, and Elon Musk replied. Fourth, we have a new note from Dan Ives of Wedbush, reiterating his $550 price target. And finally, Polestar is going after Tesla owners with a $20,000 incentive. We got Hans Nelson joining us. Welcome, Hans.
Thanks for having me, Herbert.
So let's, report on this full self-driving. It's rolled out in China. We had, even just yesterday, I was showing that cars in China were already downloading the app, the program, but it's not full self-driving. It's Autopilot. We have the first videos. We also have the first reports of what it can and can't do. And curious to see what you think Tesla did there. So we've got this first video here, FSD in China. Let's watch this one here.
哇，
非常
可以看得到，可以看到。
I'm gonna turn it off, but basically they're excited. You can see that. Yeah, these are cars driving around in China. It's Did you watch these videos?
I think I saw one of them, but maybe not the other one.
Yeah.
So
this is just in traffic. That's one thing that they're saying, though. It's able to, all the bikers everywhere. You can see that, and it's just driving on nicely. Here's the second one. So this is a second video here. Yeah, this normal driving seems to be doing very, very well. Oh my God. Just all of a sudden, you'll see these bikers, motorcycles driving all over the place. It seems to look at the navigation there. Looks like it's to be able to track the streets and so forth. It's impressive though, right? That Tesla can actually just plop it and then there it goes. So just to clarify here, this is 2024.45.3.32.2, which is FSD 13.2.6 in hardware for cars. They're not officially calling it FSD. They're calling it Autopilot, Navigate on Autopilot. What's your understanding what they're doing here, Hans?
Well, there are a number of different possibilities with what we're seeing. One of them is that they literally are just letting the existing version of 13.2.6 that's been trained on, primarily data from outside of China to operate. And they haven't done any sort of modifications to it. We have seen that systems like that drive just fine in Europe. And so, it's conceivable that something like that could operate in China, but I would say that that's probably low likelihood because even the one in Europe that we've seen kind of work, they didn't necessarily roll that out to customers. It's a whole different level of validation that you would think that they would want to go through before they give it to customers. So then we get into the scenarios that Elon talked about on the Q4 call here recently, where he said that, they're trying to just get publicly available videos of the driving environment in China, and they're trying to use that in order to beef up their training. One of the things that he didn't mention that is also highly feasible that I would be surprised if Tesla's not doing, but this is complete speculation on my part, is just actually beefing up the amount of training data that they're using for a China-specific version of this that is sourced from Asia Pacific, but not necessarily China exactly. So they could pull data from Taiwan. Obviously, they've got lots of data from South Korea. They probably have some data from India, even though we're not officially doing a whole ton of exporting into India. There's should be some vehicles there that they should be able to pull some data from, but then also, anything in Singapore, I don't know what the presence of Tesla vehicles in Vietnam might look like, but there are lots of other Asian countries where we should be able to export data from that are going to have maybe not identical driving scenarios to China, but at least very similar. And that should, any of those driving environments, you are much more likely to encounter the type of traffic there that you saw. Anyone who's been to Asia and especially in the more rural areas, you see all of the motorcycles, bicycles, sometimes donkeys pulling wagons, and just all kinds of crazy traffic that you would not necessarily see in a lot of the rest of the world. And they can actually source that data from other places, use that to create a training set, but also potentially a simulated world model that is based on ground truth real world examples, and then train their system on those. And so if that would be my guess as to what Tesla's doing to try and get this model to actually work and to function very well. And then the question will just be how amenable the Chinese government is to allow Tesla to operate this service in country at scale.
I guess the question people are asking then is, if that's the case, first of all, great insight there. I had not even thought of that using other data points. But if that's the case, could other Chinese automakers just roll out their own version then if you didn't need all that data?
Well, so there's a difference between training data and fine tuning data. And so, Tesla already has a driver that's really good at driving. So think of it like if you were to get, to fly to China, you could get in a car and you could drive. It's going to be hard. You're going to have to figure some things out. You're going to make some mistakes. You're going to do some stupid things. Maybe you're going to drive on the wrong side of the road a little bit, or, not understand all the signs. But you actually know how to drive. And so the gap between you, when you first get there, being able to drive, and then being able to drive relatively close to what a local driver would drive like, is not that large. It's certainly not as large as learning to drive from scratch. And so that's kind of what we have here with 13.2.6 is we've already got a driver who's a really good driver. They just need to learn some specifics and some like the actual dynamics of that scenario. And so you can do that through fine tuning, where you take a model that's already good and then you just tweak some specific behaviors. And you don't need nearly as much training compute to do that. You don't need nearly as much data to do that, either one of those things. And so while the US may be limiting Tesla's ability to train in China, they actually may be able to fine tune in China, because that is kind of a different process. And certainly they have enough of the resources to do that probably in China. And then, like I said, as far as Chinese automakers being able to try to copy Tesla, this is something that I think is going to be entirely, so they have to do the whole training from scratch thing. They need a good driver to start with. So that's a bigger hurdle to cross over. But one of the advantages that I think Chinese companies will have, if they are provided the data, that China overall has a lot of video data that they can use for training. They'd have to get a little bit more creative with it, even if the cameras aren't necessarily on the cars, which is helpful. Like you need data from cameras mounted on cars as part of the training process to develop this good driver to begin with. But they can supplement that data, because Chinese cities are just littered with monitoring cameras. And so they have insane amounts of traffic data that can be extracted from video monitoring data that China has available to it in just, insane amounts. And we just know that the way that the business and government relationships work in China, that if the Chinese Communist Party would like one of these companies to be very successful at developing a driving model, they'll be more than happy to provide that company with whatever training data that they already have from other areas of the government or other businesses into something like a Baidu self-driving effort. So they're going to be, I think, in a pretty good place relative to any other player besides Tesla when it comes to video driving data. Then the challenge will be, do they have the compute infrastructure needed? And once again, I think that that's just like, it's inevitable that they will have that. The question is just when, and what the lag time is between them and Tesla when they are given those resources.
Great points. I love this so much. You've educated me quite a bit. Thank you. So let's continue on. Looks like that Tesla China is actually promoting this. This is appearing on their website and the app. basically saying, hey, Autopilot's here, go download it. Now, this is a blogger who posted their first experience of what they expected with this FSD. Thank you, Ray, for Tesla. China bloggers' view of FSD. So let's read it. Tesla FSD unexpectedly went live today, and it behaves better than I anticipated. Its core capabilities are impressive, with no strict operational design domain limitations. Some owners have successfully used it in underground parking lots, set random destination without issues, and executed U-turns flawlessly, features we've been testing and gradually rolling out. What's remarkable is that this has been achieved without a large-scale test fleet, without an extensive local development team, and possibly even without concentrated local data training. You've explained that very well, Hans. The failures some media outlets predicted, being unusable or causing frequent accidents, simply haven't happened. Of course, it's still early. The driving feels remarkably human-like, and its overall planning capabilities are on par with the best in the field. This suggests that with vast amounts of training data, even data sourced from the US, and relying solely on a vision-based approach, Tesla's system has developed exceptional transferability. That's truly astonishing. That's the point you made, and it's great. That's the logic, right? Like you said, drop me anywhere, and I'm sure I can drive in any country. In contrast, most of our domestic end-to-end teams tend to overfit results to specific cities. A nationwide rollout of end-to-end systems is still some distance away, and let alone achieving cross-regional adaptation. This is the issue with the LiDAR. You need to overfit it. Of course, occasional issues like running red lights, going straight from left turn lanes, or drifting through wrong lanes still occur. That's the issue. They need to learn that, Tesla. I've mentioned before that some abilities are foundational, while others depend on learning specific rules. Even without fully mastering these specific rules, Tesla's FSD fundamental capabilities have already proven themselves. It can be deployed across different regions with virtually no additional software development costs. Whether it can truly master those specific rules now depends if Elon is willing to invest and how he chooses to do so. Exactly what you said, Hans.
Yep. I don't know what he means there at the end by whether Elon, or whether maybe it's a she, whoever it is, what they mean by Elon's willingness to invest. Elon is more than willing to invest. The question is, what compute resources need to be where, what data needs to be sourced from where, how can the data be used to train? Like, now that it's operating, one of the advantages that Tesla will have is they have intervention data once they have FSD going in China, and so they can see, okay, where is our 13.2.6 model actually failing? Where are Chinese customers having to intervene? And then if they're allowed to, they can definitely and easily use that data to rapidly improve the performance of the system. But then you get right back into the question of whether the CCP will allow them to export intervention data. Like, are they only concerned about pure video data? Because if it's only the video data, there also might be ways that they can abstract getting the important information that they need for training from the video data itself, and maybe they can export that and then do some sort of reassembling process in a data center somewhere else. So, there are definitely options that Elon and Tesla have here. And obviously, like, Tesla makes the impossible merely late. This challenge of getting FSD to work from a technical standpoint in China, I think, is something that falls well within the category of something that Tesla can make, something that people will say is impossible that Tesla can make possible. My just big question marks in all of this, like I said, really come back to whether or not the Chinese Communist Party is going to really be okay with this system operating at scale inside China. And I think the answer to that question is probably going to be yes in the short term, but I don't know that it's going to be yes in the long term. One of the trends that we've seen with automakers is that China invited all of these Western companies into China to manufacture cars, do their joint ventures, so that they could learn. But now they are actively subsidizing, they have extracted all of the IP from all of those companies on how to manufacture cars well. They have distributed that IP throughout the Chinese economy, and now they are actively subsidizing competitors against companies like GM or Mercedes or Volkswagen to kick these companies right back out. So they're trying to extract value from these companies, and ultimately they don't want to allow these foreign influences to be successful in the domestic Chinese market. And I could see a very similar dynamic playing out with FSD, where maybe they're not necessarily able to extract the information from FSD directly, but they can use Tesla's operation of an FSD platform inside of China for a period of time to put competitive pressure
Mhm.
on their local players, and to also kind of show the way on how it's done, then develop that IP internally, but ultimately to actually not want Tesla to be able
Mm.
to have China
Yeah.
as a source of revenue. But that's such a long-term concern. Like, if we can extract revenue for the time being, it's still going to have huge upside for the stock, and then we can get to those other anti-competitive dynamics when we get to them.
Again, it's like Elon said, right? Go ahead and copy us, but we're going to innovate. We're going to have robo, cleaning. We're going to have wireless charging. We're going to have this thing more superchargers than anyone else, and then we'll let your EVs be able to take advantage of these infrastructure. There's a lot. So first of all, great first step, right? Because this is pretty scary. At one point, I was going, could Tesla, China, basically yes, and they were like delaying it. They did not.
Mm-hmm.
They let them in. Stepping stone. So first in,
Yep.
Now they're selling FSD to customers, number one. So FSD, paying them $8,800 US dollars. And then two, this shows that they're probably at this point, why would you let this happen if you're not going to let them do robotaxi? So yeah, we'll see. But great news.
It's very positive sign. Yeah. Especially for the next 5 years. Like,
Yeah.
we don't know what happens after that, but right now, all of the signs are looking very
It's good. And it happened so quickly. That's the other thing. Once they said yes, obviously they had to have said yes. They rolled it out. So here is the list Ashok Goswami's sent out in September of last year, and they hit everything here except for FSC in Europe now. FSC in China has been approved. It's funny, some people are going, oh, I didn't hear the government approve it. Yeah. Do you think Tesla's doing something
if
that's
they're
illegal?
operating, it's approved. Yeah,
it's approved. Come on. All right, so let's move on. We did, hear Elon saying we already have thousands of Teslas driving autonomously in Fremont, and we're hearing that it's about to start in Giga, Texas. So I just thought it'd be fun to actually, watch the video of this is happening. So this is a spy shot from Met God. Thank you for him, this person, to show us this video. But these are cars. They're all driving along quite nicely. Look at that. There's even like these forklifts driving right alongside. It's like business as usual. You got semis. You know what I mean? Like, there's nothing that they had to change to make this happen. So thank you for that. Tesla Fremont video. Check him out at Met God in Wilderness. Thank you for sharing that. So this is the unconfirmed rumor, though, that Giga Shanghai has reportedly achieved an output of 2,000 new Tesla Model Ys per day. Have you heard anything about this? And I mean, it sounds right. I wouldn't say that this is wrong, but this is the rumor at this point.
Yeah, I haven't heard anything beyond this rumor. But and I think we'll talk about this a little bit more shortly. But Lars seemed very optimistic about the ability of all of Tesla's factories to cut over to this new Model Y and ramp up relatively quickly and relatively smoothly. Obviously, there's a lot of complexity that goes into that. But I was very encouraged by his tone in the conversation with Ryan McCaffrey on that fact. And so then to see this kind of corroborating detail emerge from China, I mean, 2,000 Model Ys per day. Now, they're probably not able to achieve that every day, but that's a run rate, if they can maintain that, of 14,000 Model Ys per week, which is, remember, getting to volume production of the Model 3 initially in Fremont was 5,000 Model Ys per week. So we're talking about 14,000 Model Ys out of Giga Shanghai, which is just incredible that they have ramped up to that level so quickly. And I think that this is probably on track to be, there's going to be improvements in throughput on these lines, almost guaranteed. So by, within the next couple of months, we should be able to see Giga Shanghai actually outputting a larger number of vehicles than they ever have, getting to new production records. And then, the value proposition that customers are getting for that same price should also help to improve sales volume. Like, these are all just very, very good signs that we are on track and that we are really moving forward.
I talked to Jeff Lutz yesterday, and he was saying that Q1 is going to be bad. And there's a lot of reasons why it is. Well, obviously, the sales are lower for all automakers, but this is the month, and that's why they kind of did it, right? Let's put all the bad things together. But this transition to 2,000 new Model Ys per day will help, but don't expect that that we're going to see.
Yeah, we're definitely not going to catch up to Q1 production from 2024. With the progress that they've made here. But overall year, like the run rate towards the end of the year is going to be, the run rate towards the end of Q2 will be fabulous, I believe. But that's not going to make up for the fact that we have quite a bit of misproduction here in Q1.
Yeah, it's a very odd year, honestly, because I'm expecting Q1, Q2, Q3, 4 even to be really challenged in terms of vehicle sales and just operations, because they're introducing so many new vehicles. Two new more affordable vehicles. Then you're going to have the new variant of the Cybertruck. You're going to have ramping of the Tesla Semi. It's just they're working on so many things, and yet once they release these, then they ramp up, and then they'll take over. So it's kind of that weird transition here. All right, this is a very interesting kind of fake news here. We have Financial Times was reporting that a high-level group from Japan wanted to court Tesla on investing in Nissan, save Nissan in exchange for U.S. factories. Japan to court Tesla. This is a high-level group, includes a former prime minister and the former, supposedly, the former Tesla board member, Hiro Mizuno. And they were saying this. Immediately, Hiro Mizuno replied, saying, "I have absolutely no involvement in what is reported in this article, and I am unaware of any such moves by the Japanese government. I'm no longer with Tesla, but personally doubt if Tesla has any interest at all in Nissan factories, as Tesla's factory design is so unique." Elon replied, saying that Tesla factory is the product. The Cybercab production line is like nothing else in the automotive industry. So this idea that Tesla would actually buy somebody else's factory, no. Tesla will create their own factories. It's designed in such a way, and they've invented new ways to build cars like no one else. And so there's zero reason why they would ever do this. And then you said the fake news strikes again. So what's your thoughts on what happened there?
Well, once again, pure speculation on my part. But to me, what it sounds like is this was essentially a trial balloon by the Japanese government to try and gauge whether or not Elon Musk would be interested. And they, used the reporting about Hiro Mizuno in order to get their attention and to draw a comment and to try and begin this negotiation and conversation process. It doesn't sound like that has turned out very well for them. I am, 100% not shocked that Nissan is trying to gauge, or not trying to gauge, but trying to attract interest from Tesla. They would love, they want an investment from anyone who will invest. And if you could get an investment from Tesla, then, that'll be a great PR move, as well as hopefully you can do some sort of a deal to, get some technology as well. So obviously, if you're in Nissan's shoes, you would love to create some sort of a partnership there. And what is it that you have to offer Tesla? Well, I mean, factories in the United States, why not? But to Elon's point, that's not really something that Tesla needs or is interested in. And so there's not a whole lot of win-win mutual benefit in this deal for Tesla for them to be interested in making those investments. So I'm not surprised that Nissan's interested. I'm also not surprised that Tesla's not interested. And very, I'm sympathetic to the plight of these legacy automakers. There's going to be a bunch more of this. Like, we're only at the very beginnings of the mergers, consolidations, acquisitions, and just absolute chaos that is going to continue to put a lot of pressure on legacy automakers in the coming decade, both because of Tesla and the push to electrification, but also then the rise of Chinese automakers.
Yeah.
And whether that was EVs or not, Chinese automakers would be creating a challenge for the rest of the auto industry. And then when you throw on top of that the geopolitical instability, trade wars, and tariffs, and all of this stuff, it's just a very, very, very challenging macro environment for automotive, period, globally. And the companies that have the most sunk cost in the most different areas are going to be the ones that have the most challenges in adapting to this new macro environment.
Yeah, Nissan is absolutely desperate. So the too big to fail in Japan is Toyota, and then the rest are not too big to fail. So Nissan, of course, and Honda. Honda were trying to merge. We've been reporting on that, and then last week they broke up, and so now Nissan's desperate. But the Japanese government is involved, so they're trying to do what they can do. How do I save Nissan? Let's trial balloon this. I like that. But this could be the path for Nissan, like, to save these guys. They have to maybe partner with Tesla with the FSD, and then maybe Japan invest in these three to save them. But okay, they're in trouble. Yeah, let's move on.
One thing that I would just say real quickly is that manufacturing in Asia outside of China is something that is of great national interest to the United States, that we need to help. Just strategically, it's important that manufacturing in Japan, in Korea, in Taiwan, all these different places outside of China survives, because manufacturing capacity is going to be a huge part of the geopolitical competition between the CCP and the rest of the world for the next several decades. And so
what Elon could do if they wanted to sell them the bots, buy bots, go for it, and then that's how you can improve your bottom line. So we got Wedbush Securities' Dan Ives coming out with all of this happening right now. He's still saying outperform rating, 550 price target. He's basically saying the things we have been saying. You got FSD kicking off and unsupervised. You got these catalysts with all these new vehicles. And sure, Elon is managing all of his work with Doge and everything is happening. But, and the controversies around that, he has this big, long note. I'm not going to go through it, but basically we've just pointed out the main points. Polestar wants to poach Tesla customers with this new trade-in promo. I don't know if you saw this. Polestar, they're saying on their website that buyers, specifically Tesla buyers, if you trade in a Tesla vehicle and you lease a Polestar 3 SUV, you can save up to $20,000 because they're adding a $5,000 Polestar Conquest bonus on top of a $15,000 Polestar Clean Vehicle incentive. Seems like they probably doubled. They're matching the $7,500 thing. So they're taking advantage of this turmoil with lots of people who are up in arms with Tesla and Elon Musk and saying, I don't want to be associated with that brand. And these guys are going after them. What's you thinking about what these guys are doing?
So on the one hand, I applaud the boldness. Like, competition is great. This looks like a lot of money to throw at buyers, so that, like, the large size of that incentive makes me a little bit nervous about their actual competitiveness and the sustainability of a program like this. It's almost like one of those sales where you're like, that price on whatever that item is way too low. Now I'm suspicious. It's kind of fishy. That's kind of how that strikes me. Maybe there's nothing to that. But I do know that Polestar is one of the better non-Tesla EVs out there. And so hopefully they can please customers who do switch. And if you are triggered by all of Elon's involvement in politics recently and you still want to have an EV, well, okay, you can buy a Polestar. hopefully the car serves you well. That's, I believe in people's freedom to make choices like that on their own. And yeah,
Yep.
I support
Strike
that.
when the iron's hot, right? So there's turmoil happening in Tesla owners, then go for it. See what happens. I doubt it's anything going to be much of a major significant hit, but it's worthwhile getting your brand out there.
Absolutely. And this isn't going to have any impact on the key areas of Tesla's focus for the next 5 years. Like Tesla's victory or defeat all hinges on FSD and then Optimus behind it. And so this is really immaterial to the overall competitiveness or the story of Tesla at this point in time.
Okay. Thank you so much, Hans. That was great. We covered a lot. FSD in China, that's the most exciting. Giga Shanghai, maybe at 2,000 new Model Ys per day. And then a few other rumors that are coming out there. Follow Hans on his YouTube channel, Hans C. Nelson. Thank you, everybody. I've created a website that is the most comprehensive resource for the Tesla investor. Please check it out. Simply go to my website at herbertong.com.